Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're so glad you spend this time with us. Today is January 23rd, 2021, and this is the Bible study. And we are recording from the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, Plainfield, New Jersey, the United States of America. And our moderator for today is Susan from Massachusetts.
Good morning. I'll read an excerpt from a sermon given by Charles Spurgeon called Jesus Sitting on the Well. This section of the sermon begins with verses from John in the Bible. Then said the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that you, being a Jew, ask drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. And from Spurgeon, But our Lord did not come to maintain these distinctions of race and caste. It is altogether foreign to the spirit of Christianity for nationalities to be despised. We sometimes hear people say of a person, Oh, he is only so-and-so, mentioning some nation that happens to be in the background. Christ was cosmopolitan. He loved men of every nation and tribe and tongue and people. To him there was neither Jew nor Samaritan. All such distinctions were banished from his mind. And I will also read from the Bible, Galatians. There is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither bond nor free. There is neither male nor female. For ye are all one in Christ Jesus. And also from miscellaneous writings by Mary Baker Eddy. The teachings and demonstration of Jesus were for all peoples and for all time, not for a privileged class or a restricted period, but for as many as should believe in him.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, those are beautiful. Thank you, Susan. I pray that heals the world of
Prejudice.
Yes, prejudice. See how far back it goes.
So many arbitrary divisions in the world.
I know it's
all that trouble. Then the people start having ideas about people they don't even know, and then the hate starts, and there we go. So,
yeah. I was just reminded of a beautiful story that pertains to this. Recently, we had lunch with someone. He's Greek, but he told a story of his grandfather, right?
His grandfather, yeah.
His grandfather. I'm not sure how he was a dentured servant in Egypt, right? And then
he ended up in a German concentration camp during the war. Not sure why or how. And he was one of the few people who actually survived it. He survived a concentration camp in Germany during the war. One of the few people to survive. He fled to the United States afterwards. But he started a business, but he had this intense hatred of Germans in him, and he knew that it was terribly unhealthy for him to have this hatred of Germans. So what he did, he moved to Germany. He enrolled in a university there. He learned the language. He studied something. He got a degree at the university, and he forced himself to love Germans.
Well, by living with them and getting to know them, he realized that he did love them.
Yeah.
And so anyway, it was quite a beautiful story of forgiveness. I told the man who was telling it to us he should write it up somehow. But and this man that we were speaking to that told us the story, who was his grandson, he's just the most loving, open, kind person. And yes, I would say cosmopolitan. He travels all around. And anyway, it was very refreshing to hear that. It was just what Florence just said. You don't even know these people, and yet you hate them. How'd that happen? So he got to know them and realized that they are all children of God, all worth loving. And
his son, the father of the man who was telling us this, became a minister here in the United States somewhere in the Greek Orthodox Church or something. That he was became a minister
and taught this story of forgiveness. And so.
Yeah. It reminds me of Martin Luther King's this statement that I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. So
wonderful. Exactly. Well, and Mrs. Eddy says somewhere in Science and Health that all of mankind's problems or the big mistake that men make is to believe that man is both material and spiritual. Right? And if you believe that man is material, well, then you're sunk, because you've got all these beliefs of limitation, and you're going to envy, and you're going to feel inadequate, and you're going to try to feel superior. You're going to have pride, and then you're going to have fear. And all of these false beliefs are going to own you. And you're going to make generalizations about people. You're going to and do all these stupid things that only harm both you and anybody around you. That's why science is the only answer.
Absolutely.
Man is not material. He is spiritual. Boy, the implications of that are huge.
It was a wonderful week to go back and listen to Martin Luther King, some of his speeches. Jeremy found a beautiful one, too. He sent to his children. What was it called? A blueprint?
I think it was called The Blueprint of Your Life or something like that. It made me cry like 3 times.
I know. We're all crying through that. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for sharing that, Florence. The things that he said, we put another quote on the carousel. So, and thank you, Susan, because this is such an important topic, and I hope it just washes over us, washes over our world, so that we will not get into this awful, unfounded division amongst brethren.
It's interesting because one of the things that drove me out of Christianity when I was younger was that thought that there's only one right sect, and only those people are going to be saved. And I just found that really weird. Like, God's going to create all this and then just give it to 40 people or something stupid like that, So, but I was so delighted when I came here and realized that Christian Science is for everyone. That's why waste your time with anything else.
Yeah, and it's not a sect.
Not a sect.
No.
Not religion either. Anytime anyone says religion, I actually want to use like one of those beepers.
Oh,
Not listening.
I think also the mention of neither male nor female, to learn that truly we all have both qualities, the male and female. I think that cuts through the disrespect of female and all the other things in some cultures.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, that's another very important aspect. Thank you.
Well, yes, you're right. It's a sign of a civilized society, isn't it? I mean, how long ago was it that women were allowed to vote in the United States or in England? Or
It was late.
yeah, it was
Less than 100 years ago.
a little over 100 years ago.
Oh.
And Mrs. Eddy was, she pushed for equal rights. She pushed hard for it. And
Well,
it was
it's
around
all-
her time that it happened.
All through her writings. All of this is all through her writings. And she talks about, demonstrating both the so-called male qualities and female qualities. It belongs to all of us. There's no distinction in that way. And people were prejudiced against her because she was a woman. How could she found a religion or a way of life? Don't want to get beeped out by Jeremy.
Of life.
Something to the effect that the female was actually the superior.
Yeah.
But I think she's not talking to people, the gender of people, but the quality of thought, which we all have. We all have those qualities of thought that are identified as female and male. But those that are female are actually the superior.
Love.
Love. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and she did say they were more spiritually minded and could grasp things better. I forget where that is, but one time during a class, Mrs. Evans brought that out, quoted it or something. We had some guy pack up and leave. He was so mad, which maybe was a proof of the point. I don't know.
There's another thing that comes to mind reading these wonderful selections that you gave us, Susan. Thank you. And this is the idea of taking sides, because so often in society, the question comes, well, whose side are you on? And you mean I gotta pick one? Really? Well, there's only one side to take, and that's the side of Almighty God. And so we all need to look within our heart, say, what's God saying here? That's the only side. Instead of having to pick sides, formulate judgments, and get in a very disturbed state of thought, actually.
Yeah, not who's right, but what's right.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, this is, because choosing sides is not a personal thing. It's a spiritual thing. It's either right or it's wrong with God. And we as people have approximations of what's right in some cases. And humanly, who's to say, right?
Exactly.
Spiritually, God says. And that's why our spiritual sense is so essential. We really can't make good decisions without spiritual sense. Anyway.
Well, those were wonderful selections, Susan. Very, very healing. What a wonderful one from Charles Spurgeon and Mrs. Eddy and the Bible. Thank you.
Well, I had a lot of help on the readings, so thanks to everyone for their input.
Oh, good.
And I always feel like nature is a wonderful example because everything looks so different, like the flowers are all individual expressions, but they don't fight with each other and say, well, you're this color, so I don't like you. That's what makes nature so beautiful, is the diversity of it.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, and of course the little children too. They just love each other. They don't see color or anything. How could? And none of us should either. It's one reason I do love this area, living in New Jersey or Plainfield area. It's very diverse, and I just feel it's wholesome.
So welcoming too. I've been a lot of places all over the United States, and this is one of the most integrated. The way everyone gets along is so beautiful. It's so deep in the heart and pure, and you feel so comfortable. It's just beautiful.
It is, absolutely.
Because only infinite love is among us all, in truth. That's it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it's that kind of atmosphere that allowed this church
It's true.
to blossom.
It's true. It didn't blossom when it was this rich community. It was after the riots, after things came a very humble area, and that is absolutely right. That's when it came forth, as it always will. As Jesus was born in the manger, it takes a humble atmosphere for the truth to bloom, not a self-righteous place. It was
More like Samaria than Judah.
yeah.
I was reading some of these, and the thought came, who doesn't want to know that God loves him? And that's why Jesus was there, to let people know that God loves everybody.
Well, the Pharisees didn't want to know that.
True.
Not to give away the answer to the first question.
Okay.
Okay, so
can I just make
well, when they were talking about male and female, there's a wonderful page in the Blue Book on page 73, and where it talks about the male and female natures being equally represented in each one. And it's 2 paragraphs. It's about half the page of 73. And it's wonderful if anybody wants to look it up. I was looking for it, which is why I didn't say it at the time, but I found it. So it's really a beautiful thing Mrs. Eddy says about the female and male natures in each one of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I know it's in Watches, Prayers, and Arguments as well. Something. It might not be the same thing, but something similar.
Yeah.
So, and also the importance of this story. Carrie had sent me several articles, but one, and we have been there, and I didn't remember this, but in the Mother Church, stained glass window, one is of Jesus at the well with the Samaritan woman. Was considered that significant that it was in the church. And I read too where someone said some of the most profound things that Jesus said during his whole ministry was at that time to this woman.
Okay, Susan?
Okay, question 1. Why did Jesus leave Judea to go to Galilee?
Jeremy?
Well, the Lord knew how the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus himself baptized not. Then, so it's funny how often I come back to the idea of being sent. Parsons brought up God sent them to Samaria.
To go along with that, it says, this is Matthew Henry, that which grieved them, the Pharisees, was that Christ made so many disciples. So they were worried because they thought they got rid of John the Baptist. And here Jesus popped up. And it said that, and it is a good thing that it's getting, the success of the gospel exasperates its enemy. And it is a good sign that it's getting ground when the powers of darkness are enraged against it.
Thank you. That's good to know.
That's good to know.
And we do know that,
Yeah.
yes.
We've experienced that in this country recently, haven't we?
Oh, haven't we?
And we've experienced it in our church. We've
In our
experienced
church,
it in many ways.
Individually.
So a little too much self-righteousness in Judea? A little more humility in Galilee?
And he left.
So he left.
So he said it wasn't the right time for the confrontation in Jerusalem. Wasn't the right time. Yes, he was sent somewhere else. He had other work to do.
And of course, in The Chosen, it's such a wonderful.
Oh my goodness, the most beautiful. Yes.
They did that very well. Yeah. So Jesus was sent where he would be most readily received and appreciated, and where the message would take, where the seed would be sown in good soil.
Okay. Anybody else?
Just one added note, I guess, was pointed out to the disciples who he had just, they weren't together too long yet, and they were just new, and they also weren't prepared for what was to come later, and so he wanted to also protect his disciples from it was too early for them to be exposed to the persecution. And
thank you.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Good point. He had to build his team.
Should we do question 2?
Sure, thank you.
Okay. Why is it significant that Jesus went through Samaria and interacted with a Samaritan woman instead of taking another route?
May I say something before you get into that? I have the map, and if you look it up, it said in the commentary that I read that a lot of the Jews crossed over the Jordan and went to the east side and went up to Galilee when they wanted to go to Galilee. He chose not to do that, and that's what we're going to get into. He went up through Samaria, which is between Judea and Galilee.
Thank you.
Yeah. Which was thought to be not as safe a route.
Yeah.
Because of the animosity between some Jews and some Samaritans. Mm-hmm. And it was generally believed that there was a difference between them that justified the animosity. Again, generalizations being made on a human level that Jesus didn't really care about. He didn't believe him.
I think he was obeying where he was led to go. He always constantly in communion with God, and he did exactly what he was to do any time. So he was to go there, then he went there. Doesn't matter who said what. He was doing God's will.
Exactly.
You know, in verse 4 it says, and he must needs go through Samaria.
Yeah.
The word must. So obviously the impulsion to go there was very strong and impressive. So how could he do otherwise? Kind of gives a new picture of this being sent. Only it came so loud and clear to him that they use the word must in this description here.
Right.
May not have been even safe the other side for him if the Jews were mad at him. The Pharisees.
Well, he had a mission,
yeah.
didn't he?
Yeah.
And as Florence said, he was sent.
You know, I was reading how he had a heart for Samaria. Even in the moments before he ascended, it said, but you will receive power when the Holy Ghost comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth. He cared about all people everywhere. So it didn't matter what other people thought. It didn't matter, as was said.
Well, and there was this thought among many Jews that the Samaritans were somehow inferior. And I guess a lot of Samaritans were led to feel that they were somehow inferior. And, you know, he had to go and debunk that whole nonsense.
It was interesting. I tried to read to figure out why this was. I couldn't understand it. I read it several times. I still couldn't understand it. That's because it makes no sense. It's just rank prejudice.
You know, last
I also.
life, we had that story of the Samaritan, the Good Samaritan.
Yes. last
Yes.
week.
So Jesus obviously made a very specific point about the man who asked him, what do I need to do to inherit eternal life? And then he went to the Pharisee that looked at him, went on the other side, and the Levite passed on the other side. And then the Samaritan was the one who went the extra mile to take care of this guy. So why did he say it was a Samaritan? After all, this is just a story. He could have picked out any other nationality. This is just a story he's telling. He did it to make a point. You guys need to love. You need to love. That's the point of that story. And even love the Samaritans. I can't tell you how many times in the writings of Mary Baker Eddy where she implores her followers to love those that hate them. That only love can meet whatever it is, the problem.
Thank you.
Love of life.
And it's a lack of love and all of this that destroys churches. Competitiveness, or somebody thinking this about somebody else, or whatever, and see it time and time again. So, and it was heartbreaking to her. She was alive when this division came up with Augusta Stetson, the First Church of Christ Scientists, and the Second Church, the Laura Lathrop Church. That's not science. How does that happen? Pride of power, rank, lack of love. And she does say, and I've quoted this before, when Christian Scientists all learn to love each other, there'll be no need to have a church.
That's right.
Yes.
Like, church is the divine idea of love. So, there.
Thank
I
you.
remember during the law case, Reg Kerry always telling us to love the hell out of them.
Yep.
Referring to Boston's lawyers.
And just simply love more. Love is the liberator. Love is the answer, and love brings peace. And that's why that man who went to Germany learned that lesson, because when he was in Germany, he loved all the people there, and he was healed of his resentments and prejudices, even when you think they're founded, because that's again another form of hate and division. I mean, many people do think they're founded. I guess they think they're founded. Somebody did this to me, therefore I'm going to hate them, and I don't know. It goes on and on.
Yeah, they're founded as long as you're in the wrong mind. So.
Thank you. Yes, as long as you're believing in material history, the Adam dream. And it started with Cain and Abel, didn't it, brothers?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you start feeling that way, then you know you're in the wrong mind. You can read Ways That Are Vain, Florence. Our favorite.
It's all there, though, isn't it? I mean, Ways That Are Vain, yes.
It's all there.
It is all there.
The whispering voice.
Truth is revealed. It only needs to be practiced. But, that's their challenge, isn't it? It's to practice the truth that we know. To see all our neighbors as spiritual beings, not as mortal, limited, stupid, or otherwise ignorant, or, none of that. None of that is relevant to God's creation. And Jesus knew that.
Bicknell Young, in his 1937 college article, wrote on love, and he said, you may not like everyone, and there might be something wrong with you if you do, but he said you must love everyone, and that is so important, because that is definitely, as I have been learning through this church, is so important to everything, to our healing, to our attitude, to how we do everything in life. It's just so inspiring. I just love it.
Thank you. That is a good point.
I think he was addressing really what people do more than the person. you may not like the wrong behavior. We should never like, of course not. But you got to see past that to the ideal man, the real man.
Yes. We separate the error from that person. And know that it is animal magnetism. And it's so good to know that's all this that's going on in our country and elsewhere. It's an illusion. It's an animal magnetism. It's directed to get people upset and angry with each other and divided. It's not going on. And if you can really see that, understand that deep truth, and separate the error from the people or person or yourself, you'll be free of it.
And in doing that, you will do more for yourself than you will for the person or persons you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And then it also honors God, doesn't it? I mean, God couldn't create anything less than perfect. So to believe a behavior about someone, it also dishonors God, I think.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
Also, that's someone who made them. Like the people that think that other people are bad because they look different, they're made by God as well. So who are we to judge God's creation?
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what, yeah.
Who are we to judge?
That's right. The old saying, you can't judge by surface appearances. It really is applied, because if we can get past just what our eyes see only and look within, we're really all the same. And it's that spiritual discernment that sees the image and likeness in God in each and every one.
Well, Jesus said, judge not that ye be not judged.
That's the Sermon on the Mount gives it to us.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite parts in watching The Chosen was that they gave you a good idea of what this life was for this woman. And she was a deep outcast just in her own group. And that's who he chose.
Yeah, that's another thing in their own group that you can get who's better. Someone once said, I forget where I read this, but they said, well, if God had made the world and we were all the same color, then we find something else to pick on. It's the color of your eyes or this or that.
Women do it among each other.
There's always some little thing. They're all
the way you walk or something.
The way you talk.
Taller, shorter, yeah. I mean, really.
The pecking order.
The pecking order. Yeah, the pecking order.
Well, man expresses infinity. So how is man going to express infinity unless he expresses in an infinite colors, flavors, looks, likes? How are you? That's how it's expressed through man, is in the infinity of all. So
Yes, we are all individual, every one of us.
And just like Karen was saying about nature, it doesn't vie. Everything is beautiful. God made everything beautiful in His time. It's all beautiful, all different, all beautiful.
And really, what are we looking at? We are looking at God.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. That's right. Infinite manifestation. For God is all in all.
From that article, There Is No Death, I believe that's where it's from. If they knew you as you really were, they would love you.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, that's so beautiful. That in the Eustace secretary.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that's been very eye-opening for me is from Mrs. Eddy's article, Love Your Enemies. It says, if you look on an enemy, you're only looking at the object of your own creation.
Yeah.
So the correction is not out there, but within.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spurgeon also said that there were souls in Samaria to be blessed by his presence. So if he had avoided that area, they wouldn't have been. They wouldn't have known the Christ. Perhaps.
Oh yeah, they were expecting him, right? Because the woman at the well said, "You must be the Messiah or something." She mentioned, so there was the expectation that he would come.
Yeah. And I know, and Florence sees it too, in getting people from around the world receptive everybody is to this science. Very often here, in the birthplace of science, the materiality has blinded people to science and health, while where the need is more great. I mean, I always think of Benjamin in Nigeria. He got it right away. He didn't have to be talked into it. He said, wow, when he read Science and Health. He said no human being could write this. He knew it was God ordained. And he didn't question it, or he just, and it was that purity in him that got him here. And it's still there. But he just saw it. So you never know, and I know in the practice too, I never know who's going to really get it and accept it and run with the ball, so to speak, or not. And who are we to limit? In one of these, now this was an article, Carrie sent this to me too. It's by Frank Mason, and it was in Chickering Hall in 1889, a long time ago. And he brings out that about the woman by the well, but he says to say that the world is not ready for Christian Science is to declare that it has had a premature birth. This is a reflection on our Heavenly Father and a reproof to the mediator of this century. Jesus said, what I tell you in darkness, material sense, speak in the light of Christian Science. The very fact that Christian Science is here is an indication enough that it must be declared aloud until it is echoed from every hilltop, till from every church tower, and the new birth of truth shall be proclaimed. It must be shouted aloud till it permeates all nature, till sun and moon and stars join in one grand jubilee of peace on earth and goodwill toward men. And he goes on just to say how wrong it is for us to think, well, that people won't get it or won't accept it. Who says that anyway? But that, I know that's to some degree what I've been taught in a way. Oh, they're not ready for it, this and that. Well, who in the world is saying that? This article is full of debunking that. Of course, we wouldn't have it if the world wasn't ready for it. So
the world is ready for it, because what Carrie sent you about the healings in villages in Africa, it's amazing. These people don't even read the text themselves. It's just simple explain to them what God made them to be. They accept that, and the healings are amazing.
Yes.
So it's not true. The message is very simple. I mean, God wouldn't make it so complicated that some people with some degrees or something should understand. So, yeah.
No, they're the ones that don't understand.
Exactly. It's amazing. So, let's do our best. It will be received, and those who are ready will get the benefit of it.
Thank you. Exactly.
Any people who need it. So,
no limitation on it. And we mustn't limit it in our own thought or prayers. And that's why, too, our outreach in all these different languages, and we will continue with that. Now is the time. And as Florence has said, even if they just get one truth, God is all, God is love, some simple thing, that can do wonders. And it is doing wonders.
Yes.
Shall we do the next question? What is the water that Jesus was referring to in verses 10 and 14?
One of the things I thought was interesting about this, the Spurgeon article was very good, but it points out how, like somebody already said, that the Samaritan woman was, she was an outcast to even her own fellow other women. And so she couldn't go to the well with the other women. She couldn't go in the early morning when it was cooler or later in the day. She had to go in the middle of the day when it was the hottest time of day. So she was alone, which I found interesting because that was she needed to be alone. She was the one that needed to receive this message. So she was alone with Jesus. There was nobody else. Not even the disciples were there. So it was a perfect scene. And I just love this scene in The Chosen. But just the two of them, just her and Jesus were at the well. And I thought that was also profound, and he was waiting for her. It points out in this article that Christ was waiting for her, and she came. And just the scene is just almost, it's overwhelming almost. Well, it brought tears to my eyes when I watched The Chosen, but when I'm studying more about it and how she was the one and how she received it and why. But yeah, and the water, it's the spirit of God's love to man that is this water that just keeps God's grace, that if you accept it, it just keeps giving and giving and giving and giving like a well. And her acceptance of it. But again, she had to be, I don't want to go on, but that's what it was. It was just God's grace is what the water represents. And there were two, I looked up the citations in Science and Health on the water, where it says on page 234, whatever inspires with wisdom, truth, or love, be it song, sermon, or science, blesses the human family with crumbs of comfort from Christ's table, feeding the hungry and giving living waters to the thirsty. And then on page 570, millions of unprejudiced minds, simple seekers for truth, weary wanderers athirst in the desert, are waiting and watching for rest and drink. Give them a cup of cold water in Christ's name and never fear the consequences.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, I found something in Mary Baker Eddy, Her Spiritual Precepts by Gilbert Carpenter. He said, the direct result of prayer is, give us this day our daily bread. Or in other words, enable us each day to make the demonstration requisite for the needs of this day. It is a claim of laziness that prompts mortals to use warmed-over demonstrations in order to avoid the work of making a fresh one, the one for the day. The demonstration that results in man's human needs being met is a simple one in science. When the human obstacle or argument of pessimism, fear, and false desire is removed. Just as it is simple to drink from a bottle when the cork is pulled out. Every time one desires to drink the living waters of truth, he may do so by removing the cork of belief, the obstacle that animal magnetism would place between man and all good. We do not want warmed-over demonstrations in science, any more than we want today the ginger ale that was poured out of the bottle last night. It has lost all its effervescence. The right way is to open a fresh bottle each time one wants a drink, and to pour out a sparkling glass full. Mrs. Eddy's rule was not to yield to human laziness and attempt to do a constructive thing with a demonstration of the past, even though the manifestation of that demonstration might still appear to be good. Mrs. Eddy looked upon demonstration as a valuable thing, which one can make any time, anywhere, any moment that it is needed. Why cling to the fruit of a past demonstration when one can make one today that will supply the bread of today?
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Very good.
Only should be Coke, not ginger ale.
Carol just gave you a thumbs up. Never a Coke drinkers
That's what you get for being from Atlanta.
Sorry, Gary.
Right. Well, this is.
You don't say Pepsi in Atlanta.
Somewhere here. Well.
Well, this was from a commentary by McLaren, who said, all in all, this woman is a fascinating character. She is of mature age and has had a not altogether reputable past. She is frivolous, ready to talk with strangers, with a tongue quick to turn grave things into jests, and yet she possesses hidden beneath masses of unclean vanities a conscience and a yearning for something better than she has. That's why we must never judge on superficial appearances or anything like that. You never know. Usually you do know. You can feel that yearning. Every person has that yearning inside them. And you have to cut past that. And Jesus did it. The way he could do it, the way he roused her curiosity with some of the things he said and piqued her interest. And then healed her. And then not only healed her, but others of her community. And it said, too, this is another, the strict rabbis forbade a rabbi to greet a woman in public. A rabbi might not even speak to his own wife or daughter or sister in public. There were even Pharisees who were called the bruised and bleeding Pharisees because they shut their eyes when they saw a woman on the street, so they walked into walls and houses. People understand. You walk into a wall. So anyway, what Jesus did was very against all the traditional rules and everything. He broke them all, and it was very refreshing. And then one other that says, it was while he rested by the well to which the woman of Samaria came for water, that Jesus gave to her and the people of her city the water of life, which would heal them of the thirst for material possessions. So, and what really can heal you of that thirst of wanting more and more and seeking your answers in materiality than this living waters of the Christ? I thought that was beautiful. What an answer to all our materiality of the day.
I can only imagine what kind of treatment, the Christ, because for her, she must have felt like the most victim of victims, if you think about all the things that were against her, and he rose her above that, and she went back, and she was the one telling everyone to come, and they listened to her. He didn't go to the most important person in Samaria for them to tell everyone. So she had to really overcome this sense of victimhood, I would have to believe, for her to be able to go back.
Yeah, so true. Thank you. Yep.
I think it's almost a little like in science, too, when at first I was kind of hesitant to say to anyone that I'm a Christian Scientist, but really when the spirit of it, at a certain level, you just, there's no hesitation anymore.
Yes.
I don't go around, blabbing it, but I'm not hesitant in explaining if somebody is ready to hear. I've overcome my own, there's no timidity about it anymore, in other words. The spirit of it is, there's something that happens within, I feel.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's so true.
I felt the same way, a long, long time ago. So I know what you mean. But I think being extricated from the organization that has given it such a bad name and has misrepresented it has made all the difference.
Yeah, now you can turn them to our website, or there's a place to. So, but that is true. I always felt very timid. I never would tell anybody or say anything or even mention God. And now I don't feel that way at all. But also, I there's such a need. There's just such a need. Everyone I speak to, that it comes, when I speak to them about God, their face lights up. Yeah. So we must never be timid. I know everybody. It's not charity.
People are very receptive.
They are. Mm-hmm. I know all of you are doing this. Everywhere you go, to be that light and to, bring comfort. And we know Jim in Arizona, he's cast out so many signs and hells, I've lost count.
Well, she was also shamed in society, so she really didn't care what anyone thought of her. So he might have recognized how humble she was in that way, that she would be the one to give others the message because she didn't care what they thought.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, she had nothing to lose.
Yeah,
That was it.
Yeah. Well, she was, she was what Jesus was referring to in the Beatitudes, where he said, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness."
Which really, I think, ties into this fourth question. Well, I'll wait till we get there.
Yeah, we should. Go ahead.
Yeah, we should.
Why did Jesus bring up the woman's marital history?
Well, I think is to show she's looking for something, and she's been looking in the wrong places. 5 husbands. I mean, you think it's this one, and then it's not. But that's not what she really needed at all. So I think it just brings it out. Christ is there to give her what she's needed all along.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She also had to feel her need for what he had to give her. If she didn't feel the need, then no matter how she had to be receptive, feel a need to be saved. I liked how Spurgeon said that it was needful to awaken this woman to a sense of her sinfulness. It was no use putting on plasters where there was no knowledge of a sore, and no use attempting to fill the void where there was no feeling of emptiness. You can't fill you can't fill a vessel already full. So it had to be emptied for the truth to find a place to reside.
Mm-hmm. It also proved his authority. He knew everything.
Yes,
and she
true.
accepted that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when she knew he was the Messiah. Because how else would he have known that?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Don't think I'm talking to you only because I think you're innocent.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point.
Well, she was. Yeah, I mean, she came to the well very skeptical, very scarred, and very wary, especially of men. and so he had to get her attention, and by telling her something that he had no other way of knowing other than God telling him, got her attention. She knew this was something different and very special. That's when she perked up and listened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how she convinced others that this was the Christ, because of what he had told her about herself. And she just was ready to, not that everybody didn't know probably, what kinds of things she did, but she just said, this is what he said about me, and this is why he is the Messiah. He knows this about me. And
and that immediately turned her conversation to the idea of worshiping God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
And it was the love behind what he said. She didn't feel condemned by what he said. She didn't feel offended. She could have, because what he's telling her about all her past sins. But the way he said it, it didn't offend her. It's really beautiful. It's quite interesting. It's often not what you say, but the motive behind what you say. And if the motive is loving and pure, it will reach the heart and change the heart.
Sometimes even not right then, it does in some time to come.
That's true. It's true when they think about it a little bit.
So we can do the last question. What announcement did Jesus make And how were others blessed from this interaction?
Well, he admitted that he was the Messiah. I think it was the very first time that he announced that that's who he was to her. This was the beginning, and he ended up staying with the Samaritans, with the people there for a couple of days teaching, and he was just getting a lot of converts, people that accepted him, and they acknowledged that he was the savior of the world, they said. So he stayed and converted many people in those 2 days.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And his disciples saw it, didn't they?
Yeah.
This was the beginning of his mission, of his 3-year mission.
I read where he got a better reception there than he did in his hometown of Nazareth.
Mm-hmm.
Again, mustn't judge.
Right, because Jesus himself said that a prophet hath no honor in his own country.
Yeah.
People that are familiar with you on a human level sometimes are very blind to the
Trouble.
great that within.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
And this was probably one of the first lessons that the disciples had to see. Was this one? Was the first thing that they needed to hear and see as to what it was going to be like to be his disciples, and what they were going to have to know. This is how they were going to have to think and live, and as he did. So it was one of the biggest lessons they had to learn. So.
Yeah, because they were learning that he wasn't going to be as they were taught growing up, that he was going to be some military leader or whatever and bring them to freedom and that. They had a lot to learn as far as that goes.
Yeah, I want to say I was really fascinated to see this question, question number 5, because in this story of the Samaritan woman, I would say throughout my whole life, it's like 99% about the, let's say, the living water that Jesus gives. And that's what the story is about. But number 5 says that there's was more happening in this story than the water. So I thought this was really good to bring this up. So we're aware of it, because number 5 almost never gets discussed, is what I'm saying.
It's true. Yeah.
Well, and
I'm not sure why. But.
Well, she was the person that it happened through, because as soon as she perceived that he was a prophet, as soon as he told her marital history, she turned the conversation to worshiping God. And then she said, we're expecting the Messiah. We know that it'll happen someday, this living water, or this truth, or whatever. And that was his opportunity to announce that he was the Messiah.
Yeah, he did speak to her about many important things. He didn't really go around telling everybody he was the Messiah, but he felt he could tell it to her.
Yeah, because she was ready.
Yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful story.
Yes.
It's very humbling.
Against God, all odds, he will proclaim that Christ is here, the Messiah is here. It's wonderful. And I feel also what Jesus talked about, there's no location to worship. I think that was important. His message was to teach that you worship in spirit and in truth, which means that it's all one, one-on-one, listening to God, that deep communion with God, that's the worship of Christ, and that's anywhere. You don't have to go to Jerusalem to worship, he said.
Yes.
No, because they had been made to feel that maybe their worship wasn't good enough or something. But what is that? It's one's heart.
So important. What a wonderful truths. Yes. Don't have to go anywhere. Because that's another misconception.
No, it was good. You said it's in your heart. That's so true. Are we worshiping God? We're committing our lives to Him. Are we humble before Him? Are we obedient to Him? It's all in the heart. That's the place of worship.
And it didn't matter what your past was, how many mistakes you made. He was there for everybody. You could be forgiven.
Yes, yeah. It's quite a wonderful story.
A lot to learn from it all for each one of us.
It really is. A lot to learn. Very humbling.
Well, darn, you got an hour. That was perfect.
An hour, Susan.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Very much. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.